Good morning guys and welcome back to Damo Drives, bringing real reviews to real people and answering some of those questions other channels might not talk about. When it comes to buying a used car, well, it can be a bit of a minefield. I have tripped over many times with buying used cars, and I think a lot of that is to do with, well, I don't quite know what I'm looking for. And I've gone and bought a new daily. It's a Mazda 6 2007 plate, 2 litre TS with 81,000 miles on the clock. I took it for a test drive, I've kicked the tyres, and that's where my limit of mechanical engineering stops. So in this video, I've come down to HBC Classics here in Eastbourne, and I want to give you a buying guide to a used car. It might be a budget car like this at around £1,000, £1,500. It may be a £100,000 car you're going to look at. And some of these things will certainly apply to any car. So I'm going to go and get someone from in HPC Classics, Miles, and we're going to have a look around the outside, things you should look for, under the bonnet, what you should check, go for a test drive, and then ultimately, and well, quite scarily, we're going to get up on the ramp and get one of the mechanics here to give it a thorough going over and see what's going on with it. There are a few issues I've discovered already. Let's hope this isn't going to go wrong and get too expensive. Anyway, before we get going with the video, please click on the subscribe button and notification bell. And if you've got any questions or comments, put them down below. Anyway, let's get on with this video. Let's see whether this new daily is, well, let's hope it's not a bit of a lemon and I've actually hit the jackpot with it. So Miles has come out and he's gonna, as I mentioned, have a look around the outside and things we should look at, both on the exterior, under the bonnet, and then we'll go for a drive. So really over to the expert of what to look for.
So I've bought a few cars in my time. There are really simple and easy ways to see what a car's like. First and foremost, before you go and view a car, use this bit here. If somebody won't give you their number plate, leave it alone. You want to be able to at least go onto the government website. It's a free check. You can check the MOT history of any vehicle, and it should go back to 2006 is when records start. That will give you a really good idea as to whether the car's been cared for, looked after, loved. If there's continual problems with it, you're thinking, what, I'm going to buy something that somebody hasn't bothered fixing or cared about. Continual tyres, brakes, things being mentioned. Maybe it does loads of miles, you'll be able to see that, fair enough. Or it's just a case that they can't be bothered and they're fitting cheap stuff. From a big distance, first thing you want to look at is panel gaps. If you've got a bonnet and a front wing that are completely different colours, for example, you know it's obviously been in an accident or it's very rusty and has had a wing replaced. That's when you want to start looking deeper. But a car like this, I mean, yeah, you've got a difference in paint here. It's definitely had paint in its life, but you've got to manage your expectations on what you're paying, what kind of car you're looking for. If it's just a, you know, an easy daily to hop in and you're not too fussed about, then you want to know what you're looking at.
£1,500 roughly for this, then you're going to have problems, aren't you?
You're not necessarily.
No?
With every car, you can always find a good one. It just depends how much effort you want to put in. You might spend 1,500 quid in fuel going around the country trying to find the good one, yeah, but it is doable. Yeah.
So things like this, there's this little mark down here. I don't know, when I spoke to the previous owner, it was a car wash that had a disagreement with the front. Is that anything, do you think, to worry about, or is that just one of those things you could probably...
That to me is cosmetic. My granddad always said to me, always look at the oily bits first. You want to make sure that everything works as it should in the car. The cosmetics can be dealt with at a later date. That's a bargaining chip. If you came to view a car and you see that, oh crikey, that's there, your front end going to be resprayed. Depending on what quality you want, you can go anywhere from 300 quid from some place and it'll probably be a different colour. Or you can go up to, you know, £2,000 if you want it done properly, and spend an absolute fortune on having the whole front end blown in, making sure it matches.
Yeah.
Again, depends which car you're buying, but use these kind of things as a bargaining chip. Obviously you want to check all your MOT points to start with, so you don't have like cracked headlamps and all your headlamps work, horn works, you don't have any big chips in the screen or anything like that. They're really simple things to check. And like I say, panel gaps, looking down the line of the car to make sure all your doors are laser straight, and this car, you know, actually adds up very nicely. Again, you'll see if there's mismatches in panels, you think, well, maybe it's had a hit, and then you can start feeling, oh, hang on, have we got loads of filler behind these arches? Again, this one hasn't. There'll be lots of dirt on most cars where they've been on the road, but you'll soon feel if they're full of filler. Another simple thing, if you've got steel wings, take a little magnet with you, a little ball magnet, and you can run round. Especially with classic cars, a lot of people will have a car that is completely made of filler, where it hasn't been repaired or maintained properly in its life. So if you can cruise around and go like that and the magnet will fall off it, then you know you've got a problem. So it's little tiny tricks like that will help you find a decent car. Another thing to look at from a distance, I can see you've got Michelins all round. All four corners have Michelins. You've got decent branded tyres, which means that somebody's looked after
Someone
it.
cares about the car rather than just putting Hongyong something
Yes,
or other that
a
you've
set
never
of
heard of.
long ditch finders, or you've got honkies or something. We see some really horrific tyres. Even performance cars. It's another thing that winds me up. You've got a fantastic performance car, and then you've got like tyres that are £3.50 are made of like just plastic. That's already shouting at me. Hang on, this car hasn't been owned properly.
Yeah. So I suppose shut lines on the door, just make sure, I suppose, that it's going to...
Make sure everything opens as it should do. It's real. The simple stuff is a good place to start. But yeah, just by going around checking tyres, making sure you don't have any lips on your disc brakes, for example. So they're not lipped. They've been used, but they haven't got a massive lip on them. It's a good sign to say you need.
So what would you actually be? Would you physically just feel a raised part in there?
Essentially, where the pad isn't wearing the top surface or the bottom surface of the disc, because obviously it doesn't contact all of it, you'd feel a big indent. I think the rears on this car are a better example because they are starting to go. So you'll see on here there's a bit more of a lip. They're still...
Yeah, you can just feel it.
Yeah, they're not as far as, oh my word, they're frightening, but it gives you a good idea to disc and pad wear. They're probably going to want doing at some point in the very near future.
This is a good example of something that needs doing. The lock, which should be there, has...
disappeared.
It's sort of down here somewhere.
Oh yeah, you can see things moving around in there, so that's one that you'd put on your jobs list straight away. And again, it's a bargaining chip. It all depends how much you want the car and how perfect you need it to be.
Yeah.
Again, if you're going to take this to a concourse show, you're not going to win next week. Time and effort needs to be put in. But yeah, there's a lot of real simple things you can do from a distance to immediately tell what a car's like. I mean, parking dents, pretty much any daily driver's going to get them. They can be pulled out. They're inexpensive. Again, if you want to smarten the look up. Certain number plates. These are cracked. They might fail an MOT, may not, because you can still see them clearly. But a fresh set of plates will only set you back something like 30 quid, 35 quid by the time they're delivered to your door. Will really smarten up the look of the car.
Yeah, the lights actually look in really good condition. They're really clean.
They are very clean.
I think it's been garaged most of the time, so it hasn't got that sun fade you get on lights. And
it does look very clean. There's not a lot there. I mean, the bird poo, again, I would never be fussed by that. That can be detailed out.
Is there anything we should look at in the boot, do you think?
Boot-wise, gas struts. Yeah.
These are knackered.
Gas struts are definitely something. Again, they're inexpensive, but if you let go of that and it's going to take your head off.
Which it will do.
Be a little bit careful. So, most cars, they all have different setups, but you've got rear seats that will come undone. Make sure the cables aren't snapped, things like that. They'll just make your life easier. Make sure they work as they should.
And under here, I suppose, I've not even looked under this.
Oh wow, you get a free Persian carpet, lovely. So yeah, you want to check that there's no rust in your footwell. You've got all your tools are there. You've got a spare wheel, which is about the right size for a Fiat 500 by the look of it. But yeah, to make sure you have no rust, there's no water pooling.
I think there's a little bit of water there.
So that might tell you that there's a seal on its way out somewhere. Just to prevent water ingress, but it all looks in pretty good nick, to be fair. So that might take a little more investigation.
Yeah, so it's a little bit.
Yeah, she's a bit soggy, which it shouldn't be. No car should be soggy. On the inside. If it's raining indoors, you tend to have a problem. So
which might explain. I noticed with the windows, like they do steam up.
That would make a difference. So there might be something. Has it got a rear window washer? Because if it has, test that. You might find that you've got a burst pipe in here and that's where it's going.
Yeah.
So it could be as simple as that. So they are good things to check. Again, number plate lights, simple, but you'll fail an MOT if your number plate lights aren't working, or you could get pulled over. So it's worth checking those kind of things.
So how do we check? I suppose the next thing you see people doing is bouncing on the corners to check. What are they looking for?
Out. So they want to check that the dampers are working properly. If the dampers don't work, the car's going to bounce back up at you, like a pogo stick. The damper's there to slow that down and control your suspension. And that's controlling itself perfectly. If it continued bouncing, you'd know that shocks are gone. And you could do that on all four corners, make sure everything works okay. I can see already, that there is something unplugged here.
I think.
And that looks like that might be the parcel shelf, to be
yes,
fair.
yeah, I think it won't go back in the.
Okay, so that's one thing that could do with addressing.
Yeah.
So that looks just like a simple clip. Like that.
Okay, that's one fix.
So this is the kind of thing that you can do very simply yourself whilst you're even seeing a car.
Yeah.
You fix something, well, even if you don't buy it, they're still going to come. You're still going to come.
So
away
I
and they'll like
suppose
you.
wheel arch as well, rust. We did notice
Arches do rust nicely, yeah. So
Yeah.
you'll see, obviously they should have a nice uniform shape. You'll see whether it starts to blow out, and by blow out means just changing and distorting. Normally you'll give it a little press to see how much metal's behind there. This one is on its way.
Yeah.
Not untoward. It's not a jacking point. It's not structural. It's purely cosmetic. So that isn't going to fail you an MOT. But you want to get that addressed sooner rather than later before it continues
So
to
you'd
eat
sort
the
of
rest
cut
of the
it,
car.
you'd get someone to cut it out and they'd weld something.
Cut it out, weld some fresh metal in there, and then have it resprayed to match the rest of the car.
Which is important. So that seems really obvious. So the calipers and stuff, they look really rusty. Is this like quite normal looking?
That's very common, yeah. I mean, most road cars aren't treated very kindly unless it's something special, and therefore, they're just hunks of steel. So obviously steel will rust. It doesn't actually stop their operation.
Okay.
That's the important thing. That, again, is a cosmetic look, but isn't actually going to mar how the brakes perform.
Because if you looked at it, I would, and go, oh, that looks awful. But if it's supposed to be like that, then that's...
Again, if you're handy with spanners and whatnot, jack it up, take the wheel off. You can always just, take the discs and whatnot off and just wire brush it back. It will look a lot better. And then you can even give it a quick spray with a bit of silver spray paint, and it will look a lot fresher. Cost you next to nothing, just a bit of time. So those kind of things can easily be dealt with.
So I suppose next, we've covered sort of the basics. When we go out for a drive, we can listen to knocking noise and things. I suppose under the bonnet, what's going on?
We'll have a little look under the bonnet. One thing that I will try and point out to people as well, tyre-wise, tyres have a lifespan of 6 years really before they start to go a lot harder, as you can hear. That's rubber. It shouldn't sound like you're knocking on the door.
Yeah, there's like loads of cracks.
So you can see these are perished. So this tyre is going to need replacing. The rears are actually in decent condition. They're a lot newer, but every tyre actually has a manufacturing date on it. Most people don't know where to find this. And I probably won't be able to find it now and look silly. Where are we? 4210. So that's the 42nd week of 2010 this tyre was made. So that's 12 years old now. Hence why it's due replacement.
It's looking a bit poorly.
Yes, it's definitely had a better
I
time.
know it's got 4 quite new alloys. I think they were replaced only about 4 years ago, so that's probably why it looks in good nicks and minor, which is annoying.
Somebody's had a disagreement with the curb at some stage, I should think, but again, that's not structural. It's worth checking the inside of the alloys, make sure they don't have any cracks or obvious cracks. Again, you'll probably notice any wheel wobble with missing weights and things like that when you're driving it. We'll see if we can pick some of that up when we're out. But yeah, things like that tyre, that wants addressing straight away. That'll fail your MOT, and also it's not very safe.
Dangerous as well, isn't it?
Yes,
we really do not want...
I have had an old tyre on an old classic that I collected literally the next day disintegrate on me.
I think we'd definitely do that.
And it isn't a lot of fun.
Away.
No, it's frightening. And it can cause damage to the rest of the car as well, because when a tyre shreds, it's got some weight behind it. So definitely wants looking out for. And a good set of tyres will make a car drive and handle a hell of a lot better too. Makes a massive difference.
This is probably why I get a bit of wheel spin on this. It's pulling out. It's just
more than likely, yeah.
A bit of wheel hop. It's a bit nasty.
It's like a soap bar. Yeah. I mean, as soon as they've lost that compliance, there's nothing that's actually malleable and going to, track the road. Obviously, the surface isn't 100% flat. The minute the tyre's rock solid, you're losing loads of traction. So it will make a big difference. Let's have a look under the bonnet.
Right, let's try and find I think I found it before. The car is absolutely full of... Where was it? I think it was under here. There we go.
Awesome stuff. So, I mean, that's a good start in itself. You can open the bonnet. Again, some cables will be snapped and means you can't get in there. Big worry, if you get to a car and it's like that and you can't get in there, like, oh, sorry, it's snapped, and they've not done anything about it. It means they don't care enough to actually get in here and see what's here.
Would you walk away if you couldn't view the engine?
It would depend what the car was like.
Yeah.
Depend how much the car was worth and what I was going to use it for. If it was a classic car and it was 40, 50 years old, it might have just snapped when you've gone and pulled it, and I wouldn't be that worried. If the rest of the car was up to scratch, but I would come up with a plan there and then with the owner in order to get in there and see it.
Yeah.
Likelihood is, if you were spending more money, I would have wanted to see the engine bay, the car running from a cold start, etc., before even spending the time to go and look at it. Something like this, if it didn't work, I'd probably be like, well, you've no care about what's going on in there. When was the last time you changed the oil? This is where you start looking at sort of things. So at a glance, the first things you want to check is that it's got all of the right fluids in it. You know, check your brake fluids, topped up. There you go. It's just under max. It's nice and clear. That's a great start. Obviously, you'll check your coolant again.
When it's cool, as opposed to...
Yes, as opposed to when it's hot. It's just under the full mark, so coolant's spot on. There's no leaks. There's no oil leaks or anything. You can't see spatter anywhere. And when it's running, also we haven't heard any nasty noises. There's no manifold gaskets going or ticking or anything like that. So as far as I'm concerned, she's pretty good all round.
So cam belt, we're not sure, are we? It's either a timing chain or a cam belt. It's got the pulleys down here. I suppose you want to make sure they're not...
Yeah, you want to make sure that any belts, because some
and-
cars will have two belts. You'll have like an auxiliary belt and then you'll have a cam belt. Some won't have a cam belt, some will be chained. But whatever belts are there, you want to try and make sure they're not feathered at the edges. You also want to make sure they're nice and supple and dry here, but you don't want them perished. A bit like the tyres. The minute it's perished, it could be game over, especially if it's a timing belt. So that one looks in pretty decent condition. They're inexpensive to change, so if you can't verify the ownership but you still want the car, factor in having it done on whatever car you've got. It's a safety feature, really. Not getting caught out with either losing all your auxiliaries or not having your timing in right and
the cam belt snapping while you're driving, you've pretty much had it.
Won't do you any favours.
No.
I've noticed a little bit of tinfoil here, actually. What's that doing? So that connection to that battery is... you could do with a fresh connector there, I think. It's not coming off. It's pretty solid.
But tinfoil.
But it's a conductor. But yeah, that could be neatened up,
It's like
I would suggest.
a tin from a little cake or something.
Yeah, that's pretty much all that is there. So yeah, that's it wouldn't fuss me, not untoward, but that's okay.
Definitely deal with it though while we're...
I would, yeah, for
looking
sure.
around.
Besides taking air filters apart and all this kind of stuff and checking everything, the only simple thing to do would be check your oil. I would want a rag with me, to be honest, and just once you've dipped it, clean your dipstick off.
Yeah.
I will do this on my jacket,
And your HPC.
just for the sake of it, so that we can see. So always clean the dipstick. I know most people know what to do. I'm not teaching you to suck eggs. Clean the dipstick, drop it back in all the way, pull it back out, and now you want to see oil low.
Low, so we need more
here
oil.
we're very low, and we're beyond the minimum mark. You want to be between these two marks here, and it's quite black. You'd probably want it to be a little bit more clear.
And I think it's been done like about 6 months ago, which is a bit concerning.
That's a bit of a worry if it's burning oil.
I suppose check for the lovely creamy mayonnaise, make sure that... And that's normally a gasket, isn't it?
I was going to say, it'd be a head gasket, but that's the normal first check after you've checked your oil is to make sure. And it's in all right condition. There's no scariness there. And again, you would see in your coolant, you'd probably notice that the coolant wouldn't be its normal colour; it'd be black. Yeah. When you've got a mix of coolant and oil.
Is that a walk-away thing? If you find you've got
again, it depends on the car.
Hellman's mayonnaise in your.
If you're happy, again, if a car does loads of short journeys, the condensation that will sit on that cap could just make it a little bit creamy.
Yeah.
The real test is to see if your oil level is really high. That means that you've pretty got lots of coolant in there, and that's built it up. Low, it needs more oil, but that's not terminal. And again, like I say, you're checking your coolant and you see that that's black in there and it's got oil in there, then that means your head gasket's gone. On a car like this, it's a definite walk away.
Yeah.
Again, if it's a classic that's worth a little bit more money, then you wouldn't be so fussed.
I suppose if you're spending 100,000 on a car and the gasket sort of be, but
it's not a big
when
job.
you're spending £1,500, you'll probably go.
Yeah, that's going to be like the cost of the car unless you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And you're handy with the spanners. So yeah, it's a big difference. But
so I think that's the main
overall,
things, really, isn't it?
She's pretty good. Yeah. Obviously, road test it and make sure that she drives as you're expecting. And if you're really lucky, like we are, we can put it on the ramps and actually have a look underneath and see what else we find. Yeah, we'll see what we can find.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, so that's that. We'll go for drive and then definitely get it up on the ramps and cross fingers in some ways.
See what we can find.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be anything too untoward. Nothing that can't be solved anyway.
Yeah.
She's pretty good.
Cool. So that's the end of episode 1. Hopefully you found that useful and quite interesting. I certainly learned an awful lot over the course of filming this. In part 2, we're going to go for a test drive and talk about the things you should be looking for when out on the road, and then we're going to put it up on the ramp. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. Please hit the subscribe button and notification bell. Give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone else who's looking to buy a used car. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.